Autoimmune Revival. I'm Naomi Suzanne from Naomi's Home Health, and I'm a holistic health coach that specializes in thyroid and autoimmune healing using natural health solutions. So today on this episode, we're going to focus on the connection to self with a very special guest, Sally Jane Friday, that I met through the Women's Circle that I have spoken about on other podcasts before. Sally and I connected, how many years ago? It's like six, maybe.
At
At
least 6, I would
least
think.
6 years ago, through this women's circle that I spoke about, that I was introduced to through another friend. And Sally and I traveled through this space for a couple of years together. So we got to know each other really well. And I feel like I resonated a lot with Sally's story, which you will find out soon, because we had some parallel sort of the way we grew up and how we found the women's circle and how we come to heal through that. So I'll let you tell everybody what it is that you do, and we'll get going from there.
Oh, thank you so much. What a beautiful intro. I don't even know where to begin. I guess everyone says that, but I I think for me everything I do is in focused around words. I love the energetic power of words. I just love that we can create our reality with our words and our which obviously thoughts, words, actions, it all just links in and just stories. Obviously, well, not obviously, but I help people write books and share their stories through my own podcast, which is the Hot Mess Goddess podcast. So, pretty much everything I do is around words and stories. So, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I'm loving this because I didn't resonate very much with the power of words. I didn't think about that. And you were one of the people who sort of introduced that to me and used to talk about it a lot. And I'm like, I just didn't get it at first. And I remember the first time that I sat on a call through Circle. So if you haven't heard me talk about this before, we would have a call once a week and we would all sit and share, basically answering a question that would be written for us. And I remember your share was one of the first ones that I remember, because I just straight away thought, I totally resonate with that woman, because Sally and I both sort of grew up very much in our masculine energy, and it's not something I ever thought about. And I actually enjoyed being in that space, and I rejected the feminine, and I thought, I don't even want to be like that. And, that the way you interact with women and things, and we interacted better with males. And I totally resonated with you. And then when you started talking about words and energy, and I'm thinking, oh, like I really started to listen because I resonated with you so much.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy because I grew up the only granddaughter in a family, a farming family. And so it was a very masculine world. We had to get out in the paddock and work or play with sheep and cattle. There was always something to do. And I resented women. I didn't know it, I was a child, but women in our family were almost treated less than the older women anyway,
Yeah.
and they always had to have the food on the table. We would even come in for lunch. My grandmother would ring the bell and we would come in for lunch, and it was very old
Wow.
fashioned,
Yeah.
and always have afternoon tea ready. And so when it came to shearing, even I was young enough that I was in the shed rouseabouting and things. But then when mum had to work one day, I was made to stay at home and cook for the shearers. I wasn't allowed to do what I would normally do.
Yeah.
And I did not like that at all. Like, it was uncomfortable for me. And mum would say, I've got everything ready for you. You've just got to take it up and serve it and serve them and make sure it's ready on time. You can't be even 30 seconds late. They need to eat. And it was just,
Wow.
that's what women were. They were the caretakers, but not in a good way.
Yeah.
And I think even when I was 10, my grandmother said to me, you know, your brother's going to inherit the farm and, off them, and you get to marry someone. Like that was my.
Thanks.
So it was like, oh, so now I'm not even worthy of anything that I've just worked most of my childhood for.
Yes.
Not that I expected it. It wasn't about thinking that I should have stuff. It was just this was the conditioning and the belief system that I inherited, I guess.
Yes.
So I resented women. I resented being one. I remember I used to go hunting with dad, Dad was a hunter as well. We ate all our, basically ate all our own meat from the farm, or else we would hunt it. We grew up in a drought, and mum and dad were very poor initially, so we would shoot rabbits and eat them. Like, we ate what was around.
Yep.
And so when I would go hunting with dad, I was the only female there, but I was a child, so it didn't matter. So yeah, mum would stay at home and I would go hunting, and she would say, "Oh, Sally needs to stay at home. I wanted to learn how to sew and do all these things." And dad just would say to her, "She is going to be stuck in the kitchen and in the house enough when she grows up. While she's a child, she can come with me."
Wow.
And
And
so I
that's
did
not
not
how
want
it's
to be a
happened.
woman.
I don't blame you. Like, I was the same, very sporty, wanting to do all the things the boys was doing. Grew up with my family. I had a brother, but all of my parents' friends that we used to travel with, go camping, go out in the middle of nowhere, all of the families had boys. I was the only girl. So I was always surrounded by masculine energy. My mum was the same as me, like had two brothers and grew up very masculine energy. So I just learned that from a young age. And so when I got sick, I didn't even consider that that would be that lack of balance between the feminine and masculine that would even be anything to do with what I was going through, because it affects your relationship with your partner, with other people, how you communicate, absolutely everything. And you don't even consider it, or nobody speaks about it.
Oh, exactly. I had no idea until we got on Circle, and women were just, I'm going, "Oh my God, do women talk like this?
I
This
thought the
is
same thing.
weird."
Yeah.
I I craved connection, but it was all very unconscious for me. I didn't know why I was craving this when none of it made sense. I didn't understand the language that they were talking. I'd never even heard of feminine and masculine energies,
Yeah.
let alone,
Same.
I'd heard of a man and a woman.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
had no idea. And
I
so, yeah.
Sorry. I remember them talking about the heart space and having a full cup and all these sorts of things. And I was just so uncomfortable. And I'd already been working with doTERRA, and people in that company are very feminine. So I was so uncomfortable when I first started with doTERRA, and I only wanted to use the oils for physical healing. And then I came into Circle, and you guys are all talking about heart space and feminine energy and the same sort of things. And I was like, what's going on here? So obviously I was drawn to that without actually thinking I was being drawn to it. Like something was pushing me in that direction. And like I said, when I remember your share first, when you started talking and you talked about being masculine and how much you loved being in that space. And I just thought I really resonate with that, because and if you can be loving it so much, then what have I got to lose?
Yeah, exactly. And it was a very slow transition in, but also something that I was just being told, yes, you just have to do this, like,
Yeah.
by myself. So I couldn't explain it. I couldn't explain it to anyone else. I just knew that I had to be there and that it was where I needed to be going
Yeah.
without having any idea why.
Yeah, I felt the same, because when I was asked if I wanted to sit in on a call just to see what it was like, I was like, no, I don't. Why would I want to do that?
Yeah.
And then something just, when Lana called me and said, so do you want to? And I just said yes. And I thought, oh shit, what did I say yes for? I must have just energetically done that. And then, yeah, so I learned so much from every individual woman, because like how many women were sitting in the space at different times, like 8, 10, or
Exactly. Up to
different,
12.
yeah, different personalities, and what they were all getting from it. And I think that whole connection to self that we're going to talk about was, you didn't realize that you were so detached from your emotions, your energy, your words, your thoughts. And the connection to self means that is finding yourself, connecting to the earth, connecting to anything natural, fire, air, water, all of those things.
Yeah, so much. And I remember not even wanting to do the questions half the time. Like there would be these long-winded questions that I'd be going, I don't even know what that means.
Me too.
And so I wouldn't do it. And then I would get on the call, and as people, I would always try and go last. But hearing everyone else's shares always just inspired something to come up or to pop out of my mouth. And it always, I'd apologize for it. I'd be going, oh, I'm sorry, that probably just wasn't right. Or, it was always
Yeah.
that self doubt that what am I even doing in here? I just felt so out of place. But the support was amazing. It was always, no,
Yes.
it was perfect. Like you're sharing from your heart. And I'm going, I'm what? You're sharing your soul. And I'm going, I'm just being honest. And,
Yeah.
but yeah, some of the things I found really helpful that I said helped someone else without even knowing it. And that's when I started to realize more and more about the power of words. So I was a journalist, I was a copywriter, and I wrote poetry. Like words have been, I read books as a child obsessively. And so once I realized the power of the voice more than just being on radio, because I was a broadcast journalist, the
Yep.
power of your voice and sharing your stories and just the way you share them and the words you choose to say as opposed to the ones you don't, speaking more positive as, life. I noticed it for myself. If I complain all the time, then my life just brings me more to complain about. It's really simple,
Yep. Yeah.
It's so almost so obvious that it just can't be that simple, but it is.
Yeah. Well, that's where the energy comes in of words. And I didn't even know anything about energy, that everything has energy, and, we vibrate. And that was something I learned through Circle, and words have energy. And I found myself always explaining to people that I'm sick. This is why I look the way I do, or because I was so paranoid about looking so unwell and gaining weight and all of that. And I was always explaining myself. And really what I was doing was telling myself I was sick. I just, by saying it all the time, I was telling my body to stay that way. And then through Circle, I learned maybe I should change what I'm saying. Like, I'm healed, I'm healing, I'm, you know, getting better, or whatever it was. This has got better. I don't have this symptom. Anything than other than saying I'm so sick all the time. I have no energy. I had to really get rid of all of that language, and learning that through listening to all you share your stories was really, really helpful. And it definitely makes a difference. If somebody's always saying, I'm sick, I've got this problem, you know, that's what it's the way it's going to be for you.
It is. And it took me a while to learn too that you can't just suddenly say I'm completely well because you don't believe it.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of just changing the words you say if you don't believe it. It's looking for the little improvements that you can make in the way you speak. It's like, well, this bit's actually better than it was yesterday, and I'm really grateful for that. Like, actually, it, it's all linked in the appreciation, being grateful for the little things, and just speaking them out loud gives them more power. It's just little changes at a time.
Yes. And I found, because I used to write my share down, writing it down and then speaking it gave it so much more power. And I didn't realize that either. Like, so I started to write some things down about myself, and I started to acknowledge areas of my life that were getting better. Instead of just looking at all the things that were going wrong, I was looking at all the things that were going right. And you know what? This is much better. Or I'm so grateful that I've found doTERRA. I'm so grateful that I found Circle. Like, all of these things were improving my life. And I had to focus on those instead of what I thought was making my life a misery. But I learned so much through being sick, and gained so much, gained all you women, like, we still keep in contact. We still have our group chat. We still speak. If one of us has a problem, we can pop it in there, and we know that we're going to get, unwavering support from each and every person. So look at that as what I've gained out of all of this.
Oh, lifelong friendships, without a doubt. And they're not the sort of friendships that are going to be gossipy or, you know,
Yeah.
just put people down or just focus on anything other than celebrating you and wanting the best for you and being there when you're having the shit days, because they
Yeah.
do happen. You know, we are
Yeah.
human.
Exactly. Well, I learned also too about chakras, didn't know a thing about those. And,
Likewise.
I
Yeah.
was like, what is this? But again, part of our body, part of our energy, the connection to the self, like areas that are weaker in your body that you haven't focused on. Like if I was just going and eating healthy and taking supplements, I would still be sick right now.
Yeah. And the meridians, and when, like, just there's so many hints about what we can tweak just when we take more notice of those things. I knew none of that.
Yeah. No, I didn't know that. But learning through the thing is, I think when you do need some growth and healing, and whatever healing doesn't just have to be you've got a thyroid or autoimmune disease, it can be emotional, it can be, you know, healing trauma, stress, absolutely anything. We all have healing to do. And I think focusing on different areas and spending time with people who are going through the same kinds of things. Like I know a lot of us had similar either traumas in our life or partners or marriages or, so it was really good to hear different people's perspective and how they've overcome things. And I think that's really important is the support that you have when you're going through any type of healing.
Absolutely, because I was in a network marketing company back then.
Yep.
And I remember driving down to an event. I was in a relationship that was extremely unhealthy. And I had already had two girls to my marriage that he ended up leaving for someone else. So I just had no choice but to leave that. I thought that was forever. But I wound up in this really unhealthy relationship when I was in radio. And then I had little Flynn, who's now 9. And I was trapped basically
Yep.
because I was, now not working and I had this baby. And so I was in this network marketing company and I was traveling down to Melbourne to events, which were personal development. My whole system was craving connection with
Yep.
more positive people and personal development. So I remember being told this day that if I went to this event, we were done. And I just went, oh, geez, I don't care. I need
Yeah.
to go. And so I picked up my daughter from high school on the way because I'd been up breastfeeding half the night and it was an evening event and I knew I had to drive back home that night. So I had basically no sleep. But I went down there and I took my daughter to keep me company. I think I had probably 30 missed calls, another 30 texts that I just ignored, and, do not take her. She needs to be at home. Just all these things. It was
Wow.
horrible. I got down there and I saw this lady that I'd met at a couple of events, and she just, Jules, who
Yep.
had the most beautiful energy. And she said, "Hi, Sal, how are you?" And I burst into tears.
Oh,
It was like now 7:30 at night. He'd changed the passwords to our bank account, so I had no access to money. I had enough fuel to get home, and that was it. And I just went, oh, I burst into tears, went through the event, drove back home, and she rang me the next morning and said, "I need to see how you are." It was very lovely. And then she said, "I think I've got something that you're going to, be finding really helpful." And it was circle.
yep.
And so I got on a call and I just went, oh, I need to be here. I don't know why. But as time progressed and I was on these calls, there would be some horrible experiences from my ex on these calls, but I persisted. I showed up every week. And I remember one night the police were called to my house by my daughter. And I called one of Lana. I called
Yep.
Lana at midnight and she answered. And that blew my mind. A woman I'd never met in person, that I'd been on these calls with, who answered the phone at midnight and was there for me. And that showed me the true power of friendship with women, and the
Yes.
support that's really available that I had no idea existed growing up.
Wow. I didn't know that story.
Oh, didn't you?
No, no, that's beautiful because I, you know, that I know Lana very well, and she is one of the most supportive people that I know. But, you know, in that space, learning that women aren't all bad, or they don't have this certain role, or, you know, because every single woman in those spaces, we all had businesses. Like
Yeah.
we were all in the healing sort of industry, and but all had different reasons why we were in there. And to have that support and leaning into your feminine energy. And I think that's where my intuition got a lot stronger. My medical intuition right now, obviously healing and feeling better, it got a lot stronger, but also to connecting with other women. And that, I think, is what promoted it a lot more as well, because just that feminine energy, feminine energy is intuition, but having all those women in that space who were also very intuitive really, really helped me to listen. Obviously, we were listening to our intuition when we stepped into that
Said
space.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't know we were doing that. But then we started to really use the heart space, which I can say now, which I couldn't say before. But we started to use that instead of thinking and constantly being in the ego and thinking in the head space all the time, using both in conjunction with each other, but really diving into feeling into everything. And that's what women have showed me, is how to feel, because I had no feelings. Well, you know, I just shut a lot off. And like you said, you know, Lana answered that call and it made you feel something. So, you know, you really start to open up your heart to emotions.
Yeah, so much. I cried on so many of those calls,
Yeah.
and it didn't matter. There was no one judging me for it. It was just a lot of healing came through being through those and having to speak about some of these questions, which were pushing buttons sometimes. They
Yeah.
weren't comfortable to talk about sometimes. So, yeah, and it also showed me the power of our belief systems, which are just words we repeat to ourselves that become beliefs. It's all words for me,
Yeah.
but growing up and not respecting women and not wanting to be like them. My best friend died when we were 17, about 2 weeks before my 18th birthday. I did have one best friend growing up.
Yeah.
But after that, I just thought, right, that's it. And I completely numbed everything. And I just thought, well, like, nothing that bad can ever happen again. So I just drank myself to oblivion, smoked a lot of pot, traveled around Australia, and just did not want to feel a thing. And so having this, and I didn't want to replace her either. And so when you see women cheating with your boyfriend or whatever, it just solidifies those beliefs that women are just all bitches.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when that continues to happen, it just, the beliefs get stronger and firmer. And so when I got pregnant with my first daughter, surprise, surprise, about 6 months in, my husband said that the woman he didn't have an affair with has just had his baby. And
What?
so, yeah. And so it's like, oh, geez. But I just thought, no, we're wives. We're meant to stay through
Yep.
thick and thin. So I stayed and had Maggie. And it wasn't until Maggie was probably 2 that he was caught with someone else, but I stayed again. And then eventually he just chose someone else. And I had no choice but to go because
Wow.
I just I just had no choice. So to me, just women were just all like that. Women were not my friends at all.
Yep.
There was something wrong with me. And because, like you, where we're friends with men, a lot of them didn't like me. It was, you're too close to my boyfriend, or you can't
Yep.
be mates with him because you're a girl. And why don't you want to come over to our table and talk about the things we're talking about that I didn't enjoy?
Yeah.
And, so Circle literally changed my life, and the women, including yourself, literally changed my life for the better.
Yeah, me too. And I resonate with that too, because, you know, having male friends, I wanted to talk about sport and, you know, all these things. And it's really hard to find females who wanted to talk about the things that I want to talk about. And I don't want to talk about other women and stuff like that, which is what they were doing. Or, and I was told that, obviously I wanted to sleep with them all, but I just wanted to be friends with them because they had the same interests as me. And then I did have, I think almost every partner I had cheated on me as well. And I was always told I was crazy for thinking that. And then you find out that that was true. And so you doubt your intuition, because
Yes.
my intuition was screaming that these things had happened. And then when you told it didn't happen, and you're crazy, and why would that happen? And why can't men and women be friends? I'm like, oh yeah, true. Men and women can be friends. Like, I have male friends, but I lost a lot of male friends because of women, because of their partners, which is fair enough. Like, I guess, you don't want your partner hanging around a woman, but, you know, for me, it was innocent, but for them, I guess, I could see why. But I just had the same thing. Like, I stopped using my intuition because I was always told it was wrong, you,
Yes.
you
This,
know,
yeah.
so
That
you
there's
shut
little doubt
everything.
that
Yeah.
comes with that is overwhelming, and it's debilitating
Yeah.
because you never really know whether you can trust yourself or what you're thinking or feeling or not.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's right. Like, when you're constantly told, or, growing up in the sort of families that we grew up in, very dominant males, and the mother was the, cook and cleaner and whatever. And then you get told, if you have a feeling about something, don't feel like that. So you're constantly told not to feel. And then as you get older, you just stop feeling like, well, or you can't have an opinion on that. So you don't. So you just stop, and
Yeah.
everything shuts down. And I think that's where a lot of my clients have problems. I often ask this, were you told not to feel things when you were younger? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, you've taught yourself just to stop because you were
Yeah.
punished or ridiculed or whatever. Don't cry, don't get upset.
Don't have your
Everything
breath too
switches off.
loudly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't speak.
And when you hold all that in, as you know, it causes health issues. If you don't feel and let it out, you're not meant to just blurt it out all over people either,
Yeah,
which is what my mum did. And I just thought, I do not want to be like that. If that's what women are like, I'm not doing it. So
yeah,
I did. I shut everything down for that reason as well. And then, it wasn't through all of these experiences that we've had together in circle and beyond where you learn, no, you're meant to just let them flow through you. They're an indicator of whether you're on track or not, or whether you need to adjust something or not. They're just little tools that are beautiful.
yes, yes. And I think, when we go through a healing process, we look at the physical stuff first. Like, your network marketing company was um, a lot about the physical and the
Yeah.
image and what you looked like. And whereas when I first started with doTERRA, I only looked at the physical side of what the oils could do for me. And people kept on trying to talk about the emotional side. And I'm like, stop, I don't even care. Like, what's that got to do with my healing? I've got a physical problem here. But I didn't realize the problem was physical, mental, emotional, body, mind, soul, all of it.
Oh, the senses. I still add wild orange to my cacao in the mornings, and I actually take the time to sit there and I smell it first, and it's just the sensations that go through you when you take the time to be present in those
Yes.
things, and the smell, it's beautiful.
Yes. Yeah, I did. Well, I always have little things of honey that I put them in my cacao, but I have different flavors. I might have a frankincense honey and a peppermint honey, and whatever I'm feeling that day, that's what goes in the cacao. Like, and then you get that emotional support as well as the physical benefits.
Exactly. And you get to choose intuitively what you need in the day, and that just helps you reinforce your intuition, and it's those little things that just keep building daily over time. And then I look back at my life 6 or 8 years ago now of when I was, when I made that phone call to Lana that
Yeah.
night to where I am now, and it's all those little daily things that I didn't realize at the time led me to where I am today. And it's just that continually trying to trust yourself and just keep going. And you think, oh, if I change my words, it's doing nothing
Yeah.
because you've done it for like half an hour.
Yeah. Why hasn't it started to work? I know,
Yeah.
trusting yourself is a big thing, isn't it? Like, and that's how you get the connection to yourself. I think we are so disconnected, and learning through other women and through other people is really important in doing that. And like you said, doing the daily habits. My big focus with clients is I'm all about, I write a program for them, and it's about making one lifestyle change at a time, creating a new habit. It's not about, I'm going to be on a diet for 6 weeks. I'm going to do a cleanse for 3 months. I'm going to, that to me is not healing. It's
Yeah.
just throwing some money at somebody who's come up with that cleanse,
And not
or
sustainable.
no. And it's not going to do anything for you in the long run. Like you said, you might feel good for the 3 months that you do the cleanse, but you haven't focused on all areas of health. But what was happening in your life to get you to the point where you were sick, you can't keep doing that,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
doing the little things daily is what's really important. And then that becomes part of your life. So you're the same as me. You have your cacao every day, or you have your journal, or whatever it is that you do every day that's new for you in the last 8 years that you weren't doing before. These are now your daily habits that you do unconsciously.
Yeah. And I don't beat myself up either because I have a really addictive nature, and I just spoke that over myself. I get
Yeah.
that. I know that about myself. And so cacao then became an addiction that if I didn't have it, I would start to get cranky or whatever because I don't drink coffee.
Yeah.
And so I got, was it earlier last year? I went to, I don't know, I was taking something and it was an antibiotic or something. I can't remember why. It must have been a COVID thing. Someone said, oh, if you take this, it had ivermectin or something with
Oh
it.
yeah.
I can't even remember. Dad ordered it. And I remember thinking, oh, yeah, fine. And I took it, but I had forgotten. And so I got up at 2 o'clock in the morning, didn't drink it with water, and it got stuck and burnt my esophagus.
Oh
Of course it did, because I wasn't expressing, like it was one of those things that of course was going to happen
yeah.
because I wasn't dealing with something in my life. And I had these addictions and I was just eating mindlessly again. My relationship with my body has been a big roller coaster of, emotional eating and things like that as well.
Yeah.
And so that was such a big lesson in self trust. So I couldn't eat, I could drink water, that was it. And so by the fourth day of just water, I started to go, all right, okay, body, what do you need today? Can I have cacao today, please? And I just get the feeling for me. Some people are
Yeah.
their audience, some are whatever. For me, it was just this inner knowing. It was like, nope.
Wow.
Jeez. But I want one. Nope. It's like, okay, I trust you. I honor you. And it was this whole big loving and trusting what my body wanted from scratch again, because that's what was required of me at that time. And so I didn't eat food for 13 days
Whoa.
because my body was just saying no. And I think one day I might have had something that was more of a liquidy, soupy type thing, but there wasn't much in it. And I got a yes to that. And then I
Wow.
finally got a yes to cacao. And I was like, oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to trust you from now on and not just mindlessly have cacao every day as well.
Yeah.
So it was just this huge lesson in mindless eating or emotional eating or just numbing myself or eating when I was bored, or it was just this crazy experience that I laughed. I was journaling on it every day, finding it hilarious at the same time that it took that to make me stop and listen to myself again.
And
So then
that's what it
self-trust
does.
is a journey.
Yeah.
You don't just get it right once and you never have to worry about it again with some things, we're always getting these little reminders and things. So when you do fall off whatever wagon you're on, or when you have a bad day and you eat a bag of chips, or not that I'm recommending that, But when we do
Yeah,
something,
balance.
you've got to not beat yourself up for it either, because those words sink in. And it's
Yeah,
like, be self loving is the most important advice I could ever give in anything. And it's like, yeah, my day is not really going to plan, and I've eaten a bunch of stuff that's now making me feel like crap, but that's okay because I love myself enough to not beat myself up for it.
yep.
And I'm just going to have a drink of water or a tea now, and I know that when I wake up tomorrow or even in an hour, it's a different moment than what it is right now.
That's it. You've acknowledged it. You've moved forward. Tomorrow's a new day. Start again. Like, but what you said was really important, was listening to yourself, and listening to your intuition, which is what I'm trying to help coach my clients through. You know, when we panic because we're so sick, we go through Instagram or Facebook and we start purchasing things that people are advertising. I'm going to take this, I'm going to take that, because
Yeah.
Mary on Instagram looks, she lost 20 kilos. Really, you should be starting to think, is this something that I need? Will it benefit me? And that's why I think a lot of people come to me and go, I spent so much money on healing. And it's like, because you tried things that you really didn't need to try, instead of listening to what your body was telling you. And that's why my program works well for people, because I know where to start them. I'm like, let's start with a physical, and we'll do a few things. And I'm working with this every day, and I'm teaching people to start listening, like what tea to have today. If you've got, I always keep several different herbal teas, and it's like, how am I feeling? I think I really need some licorice root tea today. Like, drink the tea based on what's going on in your body, not just start having random teas because that's what you want today. Do you know what I mean? Like, start
Yeah.
listening to what's happening in the body and do things to connect yourself to that and heal yourself through that.
It's such a great exercise just to ask yourself what you need. And sometimes you'll get crickets and it's
Yeah.
frustrating, but it's all part of that learning to listen to yourself. If I'm struggling getting no answers, I might write it down. Okay, what is it that I need in this moment? Like, there's different little ways you can do it, or there's different ways you can ask yourself these things, but always come back to that trust, and to not make those purchases from a place of self-loathing and having to fix myself, and I'm so ugly or I'm so whatever that I need that makeup or that I need to
Yeah.
lose that weight. It's like, well, I've got myself to a point where I've probably put on a little bit of excess or whatever, but I love myself enough to do something about that. So let's start right now instead of, oh, I'm disgusting, I need to fix it with this pill.
Yeah. And that's sort of what I went through myself. Like, the self-loathing because of the weight gain, and all I was doing when I was purchasing things or doing crazy new diets or whatever, all I was doing was telling myself I wasn't good enough as I was. So when I stopped doing all of that and just started eating clean food, which I've always eaten, but in just thinking of balance, good, good quality meats, good quality organic fresh fruits and vegetables, and not worrying about if I went out to lunch and didn't eat exactly how I should be eating with the girls, or whatever, not beating myself up over it, not trying to pop 20 pills that the internet's telling me is going to make me look better. And once I did that and just leaned into listening to what I needed and eating how I felt and all of those things, weight just dropped off, started to look better. And that was the most important thing. It wasn't all these crazy fads that helped me.
Yeah, it's when you feel better, and it's just mental, it's physical, it's all linked in. And so, for me, I didn't even like the word love in that sense. And so I think I saw a video years and years ago of, well, if you can't say I love you in the mirror, which I couldn't remember, we had to do mirror work in
Yes. Oh my
circle. I'm
God,
going,
that was
oh, I'm not
triggering.
doing that. So I saw this video that said, if you can't even do that, if this is the point you're at, then speak it, because everything's energy. Speak those words into water, into a glass of water, and drink the water. And then you're speaking, though, like drinking those
Ah,
words in.
yep,
That I could relate to.
yep.
So I would start to speak to my water every day, and I would just say, I love you. And I'm thinking, well, I do love water. It's, out of it's rainwater out of the tank. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I do love water, so I can say that. And then I thought, well, if I tell the water I love it and then I drink that in, I am really loving myself. So that became the very first step for me is in using the power of words, and it shifted so much.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good exercise. Really good, because I have, spoken about that with other people about in the mirror, but you don't even want to look at yourself in the mirror, let alone tell yourself that you love you. I love you. Like it's,
Yeah, because you don't believe it. You're looking at yourself, looking at all of your flaws, and it's a disconnect between the words coming out of your mouth and what you're feeling. So, of course, that's not going to work. It's going to make you feel worse.
yeah, yeah. I totally relate because it took me a long time to do that. And I can do that now, but through a long time of different type of healing.
Yeah, totally. And like and I also had studied the Dr. Emoto, where they'd written words on the water, and the ice crystals that formed from the word love were completely different to the ice crystals that formed from the words hate or things like that.
Yeah,
That was a game changer for me. So, I started writing words on my drink bottle, like on little sticky things, just
yeah,
writing words on my drink bottle and drinking that water in. And so, that's just another thing you can do. You can use all sorts of words. It doesn't really matter. Play with it, have fun with it. Life is actually meant to be a bit more fun than we make it.
yes,
And so start to play with some of these things and make it a fun thing to do, not again, just something I have to do to fix myself.
yeah. I agree. Yeah, I think I'm having more fun now than I've ever had in my life. And
Yeah.
I find joy in so many more things now, and everything that I do and work, whatever. I just find joy in absolutely everything now because I look at it that way and I choose that. Whereas I think you can choose to not look at things that way, or you can choose to look at a situation. Everyone looks at things very differently, and perspective is a very different thing, and interpretation is different for everybody. But you can choose to interpret something or perceive something in a positive sense if you want to.
So much. Yeah, so much. I was going to mention too before, because you know how we were talking about male and women, men and women friends and things like that.
Yeah,
It actually occurred to me while we were chatting that my now fiance has more women friends than he does male friends.
yeah,
And not one part of my body feels anything. There's not one bit of shit about that. It just, yeah, they're friends.
yeah,
Yeah, go have a coffee with her. There is, because I have that full trust in myself, trust in him. And again, that's come from all of that inner work you do over time. It's not just one session with someone and you're suddenly healed of all your, unconscious belief
yeah.
systems and things. It's actually loving yourself enough to put that time in.
Yeah, I think
And
that too. And I think, like,
yeah,
I've been to counseling and things before. And when you're at the counselor, it's fine. You're talking about things. But when you go home, then what do you do? Whereas I think what Circle and the women in Circle taught me was about the practices that we talk about all the time and doing things on a daily basis, and how we think about things and changing perspective. It was more focus on all of those things daily than just sitting with somebody, telling them your problems. They try and, talk about it with you, or whatever they do in counseling and psychology. Maybe I never got any activities to do at home, or, they never asked me how I looked at myself. It was always about the people around me. Um, but that's what I needed the most, was I was allowing people around me to treat me like that because I didn't care about myself enough. So if she
yes,
had have actually gone back to the source of the problem, which was me, and that would have been a lot more beneficial in the end.
exactly. And do you know, last year, it's ridiculous to think that our system is like this, but last year I also got off the wait list for domestic violence counseling. And I
Wow.
thought, well, I've obviously done enough healing. Like I've paid for my own therapist during the whole lockdowny thing that we had here in Victoria. And she's a very good friend of mine. She's spiritual. She's not talk therapy based. It was like get in and do this deep stuff, and
Yeah.
it was full on. But So worth it. So then when I came off the wait list 4.5 years after the event, which is ridiculous that that's even the state of where we are in this country.
Yeah.
But I thought, no, give it to someone else who needs it. Like, I think I'm good. I'm doing the right things. I'm taking care of myself. I'm okay. And they just said, well, you are co parenting still. So there's some triggers, that are going to be happening. Let's just give it a try. 3 months into that, I was a mess. My life fell apart. Not completely. I still had Tim
Yeah.
and, still had my family, but I think I was crying almost every second day. I was feeling awful. The problems with my ex were getting worse and worse as far as co parenting went. And one day I just said, you know what? I can't do this anymore, because one of the counselors actually said to me, well, you said you've done some of your own healing, but you're in here crying. So clearly there's more that needs to be done. And I almost believed that. And
Wow.
I just went, do you know what? This has to stop. You're just bringing me in, week out, talking about the same problems over and over again. And it's accentuating them in my life. So I stopped it instantly. My whole just, it was like a weight off my shoulders.
Wow.
And everything started to improve again. And within 6 months of me realizing that the power of words is so full on, like, obviously, things that if you're an expert in this, then you kind of get smacked around with that thing a bit more,
Yeah.
like it's always bringing you higher and higher
Yeah.
with these lessons. So for me, it's words. So
Yep.
that was a huge lesson for me on the power of words and complaining and just talking about your problems over and over again. So within 6 months of going, do you know what? No more. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not accepting this anymore. This is a boundary that I am enforcing. Thank you very much. I appreciate everything you've done, but enough.
Yeah.
And within 6 months of that, Tim and I found our dream home that we'd been, like, we just kept having roadblock, roadblock, roadblock every time we were looking. Prices had doubled, everything had kind of gone wrong. And then, yeah, I have an altar and I was praying at it. I'm not religious, but I believe in the power of words so much that I sat down this day and I prayed. And that day, someone just happened to mention there was a place for sale, and I knew the place. And I thought, oh, that's going to be way too much, but it wasn't. And everything fell into place. And within a few hours, that place was ours.
Wow.
And then, 2 months after that, I got proposed to. And it's like, oh, I'm sitting here this morning just pinching myself, looking out at our view, our
Oh,
sheep, and just
yeah.
the fact that I'm so happy and I've met a man who is so different from any man I've ever known in my entire life because of me deciding to love myself and treat myself better and just taking
Yeah,
these steps.
be cautious of who you choose to have around you. And
Yep.
when you were talking with that counselor about your past problems, you're really just bringing down that energy. And, you know, I mean, I guess they think that that's what you need to do, but sometimes that's probably the worst thing that you can do if you've done some other healing or you've done some other things.
Yeah.
But
Talking can
bringing,
be
yeah,
helpful, but not like, I think I was going in twice a week because that's what the funding allowed for or whatever it was. So when you haven't been talking about these problems and then suddenly twice a week you're in there for an hour and a half to 2 hours talking about your problems and how awful they are and how, you know,
mm,
and they did have a couple of great solutions and they did help with a couple of things, but the way that I felt 3 months in was not how I wanted to
yeah.
feel. I felt so much worse. And,
You're
that was
giving it
causing
energy
little,
again. You're giving it
yeah,
that power again. You're feeding it. And
yep,
I find the same thing. Like, I get along really well with my ex, even after everything that's happened, and people don't understand why. And it's like, because I choose to, because if I
yes,
didn't, I would be holding resentment. The only person that the anger and the resentment and me not forgiving him and all of that affects is me. He can get on with his life and do whatever. He doesn't care. But if I hated him and didn't speak to him and told him he couldn't see the kids this weekend, and like, if he wants to see the kids, he sees the kids, like, if he can't have them, I have them. Like, it's no big deal to me. I'm not going to do this backwards and forwards. rubbish that people carry on with in order to punish him for what
Yeah.
he did, when I'm only punishing myself, my children. It's draining. It's, like, so people don't understand that sometimes we don't need to get dragged into situations and feeling negative and talking shit all the time. Like, I obviously had to do different healing things to overcome how I felt about what he'd done, but I'm not going to continue it by making him pay for it for the rest of my life, as long as I've got kids with him, or, because really we're all just going to pay for it if that's what I did.
Yeah, we're all human, and people can only be who they are based on what they know and where they're at the time. And you can't judge people for that. That's
Yeah.
where I've really learned to just let go, show some forgiveness, show some compassion. You can't change people and make them be someone they're not.
Yeah.
So just have compassion for where they're at because they don't know any better. Have compassion for where you're at, and where your children, what they need, and just let it go.
Yeah.
As much as that can be really difficult, I know when it's, there's a consistent need to communicate it, it can be not easy, especially, in my case, there was the domestic violence situation. So I know it's not always easy, but the moment I decided to change that narrative and that story that I was telling myself and telling others, it shifted.
Yeah. And you're the only one that can change your own story.
Yeah.
Like, people can do things to you and you can choose how you react, how you respond. Like, sometimes it's hard not to respond in a negative
Yeah.
way or abusive or whatever, but sometimes you can choose differently. And you've got to think about, like, how it's going to affect you in the end, because bitterness and resentment is only corrosive to your own self. Yeah, you
Totally.
might get
Yeah.
a few points back on them by not letting them see the kids, and you'll hurt them that way, or whatever it is that you choose to do. But in the end, it's not just them that you've affected, and you've gone and put yourself in that energy, and you've spoken those words out loud, and it's going to come back at you somehow. Like, for me, when people are trying to pay each other back for things, it's never ending. I'm going to pay him back, and then he's going to pay me back for what I did, and then it just goes backwards and forwards. No one's ever going to admit who was wrong first, or, and where does it stop?
Yeah. It's drinking, like when you spit out those words, they do come back. They just do. And you're drinking your own poison because you're poisoning your own body with those thoughts and those emotions that just get you so wound up, and it's not healthy.
No, no, and I realized that, and it's hard to explain to people sometimes because they kept saying, "I think you're still in love with him." I'm like, it's really not that. Like, I could have got back with him if I wanted to. That's no, it's not that. It's, I love myself enough to not get dragged into the shit. And he has done some healing too, which I will praise him for. And we both just get along. And when we first sort of broke up and he was trying to do the nasty shit, I just would say, I'm going to cut you off until you're ready to, you know, be normal or whatever. I would just choose to not fight and not get into that, because I just didn't want, I'd already lived 16 years of toxic. I was miserable. I was so unhappy. Why would I want to continue that for the next 10 years when we've got kids together?
That's right. It's a choice. It's enough self respect to say, do you know what? I respect you enough. I respect me enough. We're not going to do this.
Yeah.
Let's take a breather from this conversation and come back when we can actually have it without the heightened emotions.
Yeah. And in the end, he gave me two beautiful children, like
Yeah.
two beautiful stepdaughters. What, like, I'm grateful. I wouldn't
Yeah.
change it. I mean, I would change some things, I guess, but you can't. So there's no point worrying about it or thinking about it. But you just have to
And
look
they
at what
all
you got from it.
and they all got you to exactly where you're meant to be. Like nothing is a mistake here. Nothing
Yeah.
I experienced was a mistake. It, were experiences that I kind of had to get me to where I am now. And I look back and go, wow, oh my gosh, I am so grateful for all of that because that gave me the strength and resilience that I need now to face this next, you know, step into being in
Yeah.
business, because I was one of the women in circle that didn't have my own business.
Yeah.
I was a mess of a woman. So leaving that gave me the strength and resilience to go, well, I love words so much. I'm a journalist, like I already used to get paid to do it, but I don't want to go to work at 3 o'clock in the morning in radio anymore. I want to be home for my kids. So let's make this work.
Yeah.
And it, as you know, having your own business at home, you don't have a boss that keeps you accountable. You've got to do all of that for yourself. And my discipline was not good. So, having that strength and just the courage and all of those things required to step into business it was such a gift.
Yeah. It's hard, but I think when you love something so much as well, like I love what I do, you love what you do, and we're happy within ourselves. That's why we love it as well. And we've stepped into learning as much as we can about our chosen trade. And then we're going to love it and we're going to feel good about it. And we're going to want to
Yeah.
do it all the time. And, that's the beauty of growth.
Yeah, it's never ending.
Yeah. And that's what I'm always saying to people. We're always healing. We're always learning. Like I had a friend here the other night, we we're having dinner and we are talking about different things with health. And she's like, I just thought about this. You know so much. I'm like, I had to. Like, I wouldn't have learned as much as that if I was well. I would just not know this stuff,
Yeah.
but I had to learn it. And now, because I'm helping other people, I'm still researching things for other people, or I still, try different things for other people. So it's not just what I've done for myself, it's for other people as well. So I've learned a lot, and it's because I'm passionate too.
Oh, you are. Like seriously consistent with your videos. You inspire me. Oh my gosh. But that's what I love seeing about what you do is that you've been able to help yourself, and from that you know that you have this beautiful gift that you can help others with. And so you're always getting to expand that and just learn more and help in different ways. And when you find out something new, you're not closed off to it. It's like, wow, this is cool. Like, let's see if this is going to work or not. It's just this beautiful
Yeah.
expansion.
I'm always saying that I'm my own scientific experiment. Like I don't
Yeah.
look at science and go, oh my God, I can't try that because science didn't say it. I'm thinking, well, I'll try it, because if it works on me, then bang, there's my science. Like there's my
Yeah.
results. And then, I'm not going to do anything dangerous or stupid, but eating a banana because it's meant to be good for XYZ is not going to hurt me. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
And water, well, you can't go wrong with that.
exactly.
Just make sure you kind of purify it if you've got that town tap water.
Of course, I'm all over that. I've got a whole house purification, water purification, so I'm on to all of that. But yeah, I know, and even one of my friends, she gets her water and changes the energy with her. I don't know what she does with it, but does all
Is it
sorts of
like
things.
Reiki? People
Maybe,
do
yeah.
Reiki stuff with water.
She does something and she has big jars of it, and she's like, "That's my healing water." So, like, whatever you got to do, hey,
Yeah. And also, I think with that too, because I used to think, oh, I just don't know enough. They know so much more than me, and oh, I
yep,
don't know Reiki, so I just can't do that with my water. This is where I found words so simple, because everyone can either write a label on a jar of water or
yep,
write, on their bottles or speak into their water. And again, mean what you're saying.
yeah,
You can't just sit there and go, oh, I'm so abundant, but I feel so lacking. Like that's not helpful to anyone.
no,
But if you can look at the little places in your life you are abundant, and then speak while you're feeling that, speak that into your water and
yeah,
then drink
totally.
that, it just changes everything. So we are all energetic beings. We're all capable of shifting energy, whether we know it or not. So don't kind of judge yourself that you might not know Reiki to be able to change your water, because you can.
I totally resonate with that, because people used to say to me all the time, you need to help people heal their thyroid. I'm like, who's going to listen to me? Why would anybody come to me to help them heal their thyroid just because I've done it? They're not going to, they're not going to want me to do it for them. And I had to change that thought. I'm like, why wouldn't
Yeah.
they want to come to me? Why wouldn't you want to go to the person who's fixed themselves and learned as much as they possibly can, like the amount of study and research,
Tried everything.
and,
Yeah.
tried everything? Why wouldn't they want to come to me. So I had to change that and think, well, I am an expert. Just because somebody else doesn't say that I'm an expert, I am an expert because I do know so much.
Yeah. And it's changing that narrative about yourself. It's like for me, everything is a thought, which is words in your head, or, and a feeling, which is words again. I
Yeah.
feel, and you label it. So yeah, it's big. Changing the words about ourselves is the hugest thing.
Yeah. And I think too, I haven't gone to university for it. I have done different courses and whatever, but I think as a society, we get so focused on the certificate and the piece of paper. And then I thought to myself, you know what? I went to about 10 different doctors that all had a piece of paper and they all made me sick. So why do I care if
Exactly.
I don't have a university degree? Because the ones that had university degrees didn't help me at all.
They didn't have the training in your specific issue. They had a very broad medical training that wasn't specific to your problem.
Yeah. And
Whereas
they
you've
were,
got that specific knowledge and skill set, and you're constantly expanding it. It's just brilliant.
yeah. And, shoving a pill at it isn't the answer, which their training is giving pills. Basically, that's it. Like,
And they get bonuses for giving the right
yeah,
pills,
that's
I get
right.
that.
So my training is very different and it's very hands-on. Like I know through experience, I know exactly what works and what doesn't because I've seen it myself.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's what's great. And you're willing to look at what's not working. If you suggest we're all different, our bodies are all made up a little differently. It's like, oh, let's tweak this.
yeah.
You're like a magician with this stuff. It's awesome.
I'm getting there. I do believe that anyone that comes to me, I can help them as long as they do what I say. I can't go into their house and wake them up in the morning and say, come on, we're going to have some celery juice now, and then we're going to do some grounding. And then, they have to have that will to help themselves as well.
Exactly. And that just comes from you attracting the right people to you who are ready to do that.
Yeah. I did some statistics, and 100% of the people that have come to me more than once. So I usually like people to come for 2 or 3 consultations. Every single person that has come back is better. People who come for one consultation and never return and don't respond to my messages, because I always reach out to my clients, ask them how they're going. What do you need from me? I have support, always support my clients outside of the consultation. The ones that don't get back to me, that don't book in again, I wouldn't even know if they're well, or some of them might respond, oh, I'm not really doing great. And it's like, okay, you need to book back in so we can go over
Yeah.
what it is that you are or aren't doing. And then they don't. So, it's not just about going to one consultation, going, well, this is going to do it. They go to
Yeah. It's
doctors 400 times and pay doctors 400 times and get the same results.
yeah, but they're
You know,
expecting a magic pill
yeah,
or
they're expecting me to fix them in one consultation, and it's not me that's fixing them. It's themselves. That's what they've got to understand. They are the only person that can do
yeah. Oh, I love that.
it. Well, we've been going for a while. I think we could talk about this for, 3 hours.
We could, but thank you so much for having me on here. It's just been such a pleasure. It's been too long.
Yeah, I know. And thank you for joining me. You have your own podcast as well, that it's on Spotify, isn't it? Hot Mess Goddess.
Hot Mess Goddess. It's on all the platforms, which is relaunching in the coming year too. So I've had a
Perfect.
year off
So
that.
if you want to dive into the power of words, Sally is the guru on it. Listen to her podcast. Make sure you save it follow it on Spotify or any of the other platforms that she's on. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I've really enjoyed this. I could talk for hours, but we'll let everybody go.
Me too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.